Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another live edition of the Spirit of Prophecy podcast. Today, we are doing a special live stream celebrating 2 years. I believe the official date is in 2 days, but I decided to do the 2-year anniversary live stream today because I was supposed to be recording an episode with someone today, but we had to reschedule. So I decided I would do the anniversary one a couple of days early. So it has been 2 years since we started the Spirit of Prophecy podcast. And so I wanted to just take this program today to talk about the last 2 years a little bit, but also to talk about the future of the program. And so if you have any questions too that you would like to ask on this live stream, it's going to be pretty informal. I do have some subjects I am wanting to discuss a little bit, but if you want to guide the subject matter a little bit, you can just say something in the live chat. If you have any questions, also suggestions for the show, things that you would like to see more of, and we will take those things into consideration. But we have some very exciting things coming up that I'm going to tell you about on this program. Very exciting for me, hopefully exciting for you as well, but it is especially exciting for me what we have coming up very, very soon. But yes, today we're celebrating 2 years. And so just a little bit of stats, I guess you could say, from the last year. But in the last year, we gained another 2,650 subscribers. We had, I'm not sure on the views exactly. I forgot to look that up exactly, but it was well over 500,000 just this year on the views. Last year, we had 27 different guests on this program. On the first year, we had 27. Last year, we had 33. We had 33 different people on the program. And one of the reasons that everybody's talking about the Spirit of Prophecy podcast is because, one, there's a huge variety of subject matter on here, but just the variety of personalities, positions, opinions, and you are just not going to find a better place with a more honest conversation, especially with opposition, than you are in this program. It just doesn't happen in other places. In the Baptist world, we isolate ourselves into our echo chambers and we tell you everything that we think you ought to know or think about other people and their positions, and it's not accurate. And you just end up being wrong. And on this program, one of the reasons we have been able to just have a wide variety of people on, we're getting bigger names on the program as well, is because we are also gaining a reputation of being fair. It is going to be an interesting conversation that people are going to enjoy, but people know they are going to get treated fair on this program. And typically the people who do not want to come on the program, the people I cannot get to come on the program, are usually just people who are scared and insecure and know that they will probably look bad because I think they instinctively know their position is weak. But anybody who has any confidence in their position should not be afraid to come in this program. And in fact, a pastor friend of mine that I was supposed to be recording with today, he's going to be coming on. We haven't rescheduled for sure yet, but he's going to come on the program and we are going to talk about why he supports Israel. And we do not agree on this subject. But when it comes to subjects like this, it's frustrating, I think, for all parties because have you ever listened to people when they're talking about somebody else's position? What do they say about this? Well, what do they say about that? Well, I don't know. Why don't you ask? And that's what we do on this program. We ask about other people's position and we hear what they have to say. And I have things. I want to know what the pro-Israel people say. You know, how do they answer this? How do they answer that? And so that's why I've got him coming on the program. And because he does not agree with a lot of the content of this program, but he has seen other interviews that have been done on here and has enjoyed the conversations. And again, we are always fair on this program. And so as a result of that, people are willing to come on here. So, one of my goals for the next year is just to keep that going and to try to get bigger and more impactful names on here. And then eventually what I would really love to see are some of the big names from the IFB to actually come on here. Most IFB will not allow themselves to be challenged. Most independent, fundamental, big name Baptists, they typically talk very big in their conferences, in their safe spaces, but and unfortunately, they are losing a lot of influence in Christianity and even in the Baptist world today because they stay away from the internet. And I have some reason. There's some reason I think they're doing that. But let me just say, with a lot of these people, I do still, even if I disagree with them in some areas, I think for the most part they're good. I'm for them. I hope they have an impact. But I do think they need to use the internet. And I also think too that there are things they need to address, legit areas of criticism. And I also believe with some of these people too that they, if somebody ever asks them a question, like in a setting like on this program, I think they would be able to give good answers, but they're just not doing it. And so because of that, they just kind of run from criticism. The opposition is just saying whatever they want to about them, and nothing's being countered. And more people are leaving the IFB and everything. And I don't want to see that. I would love to have some of these people come in this program and they would be treated fair. For sure. I want these people to look good, and because, I'm for them. And so again, if you have any questions or anything, leave them on here. I've got some subjects I want to talk about, but I do want to just try to interact with everybody and, answer any questions you might have or any feedback, things you would like to see in the show, guests you'd like to see on here. But anyway, some Vindicated News asks, what are your thoughts on my post-abomination imminence? I don't remember all the details on that, but I do, if I remember correctly from some of the stuff I read, I think that's when you could say that the coming of the Lord is imminent, based on 2 Thessalonians 2. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, when the Apostle Paul is referencing what I wouldn't call it the abomination of desolation, I would call it the revealing of the man of sin. I think the abomination of desolation was a specific event that foreshadowed the revealing of the man of sin. And so I believe that, of course, I believe that's still to come. And I think, after that takes place, I'm going to go steal a bunch of pre-tribbers messages on imminency, because then I think it will actually be relevant based on what we read in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. So, but until then, and then the only other reason too, I would preach imminence is if you convince me that the revealing of the man of sin already happened in some kind of figurative way and we just didn't notice it, because there is plenty of evidence and plenty of scriptures to show that many people are not going to be ready when Christ returns, which I think is mainly referring to how they are living their life. But I think, part of that will be not, recognizing just how close his coming is. So I don't remember all the details on that, but Jim High asked, do you think that the recent interest in Israel, such as Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson interview, will make dispensational preachers reconsider dispensationalism? Yes. I think that interview was so good for so many reasons. Now, I'm going into opinion based on my world and people that I talk to and pay attention to and things like that. And so other people might have different experiences. I was talking with a pastor, an older preacher not that long ago, who he's a little more pessimistic as far as his thoughts about people coming around on the subject of Israel. I am very optimistic. And the aftermath of the Tucker Carlson Ted Cruz interview has made me even more optimistic, just because of the fact that Ted Cruz, when he went on that program, first off, he looked like an absolute buffoon. I mean, and listen, you can be right about a doctrine and still look like an idiot and do a horrible job presenting it. But at the same time, I think you and I would agree, he was just dead wrong. And what he said was stupid, and he looked stupid saying it. But what's funny about that is what he, was, how the way he embarrassed himself in front of the world. What he was saying when he embarrassed himself in front of the world is what Baptist preachers have been saying in front of their congregations for years. And I really think there was something about watching somebody else look stupid saying it that caused a lot of people to just like, hang on, hold on a second. And now they're starting to think about it because Tucker Carlson asked the key question in there. When Ted Cruz applied Genesis 12, even though he didn't know the reference, to Israel, Tucker Carlson, he asked a question many people said was unfair. And they said, wait, that means we have to support the government of Israel? I didn't say the government. I said the people of Israel. But wait a minute. Okay? That is how people are applying it. That is exactly how they're applying it. When they say we got to bless Israel, they mean the government of Israel. Because what that always means is support Netanyahu's, agenda. That's what it always means, which is a Zionist agenda. Now, I'm trying to find somebody who I can get on the program who really understands the politics in Israel and the way their government works. It's very different than ours in many ways. We're told all the time they're just like America, basically, just Israel and Jewish. That's not true. They have a very different system than we do. And the reality is, what the Zionist agenda does not reflect the will of the majority of Israelis. It doesn't. And people don't realize that. They don't understand that. And so you saying, I stand with the people of Israel while supporting Benjamin Netanyahu, that right there, that is offensive to many Israelis because he does not represent their views and their agenda. And it's the same thing. I've used this illustration many times. If somebody from another country is like, hey, we stand with you and we support you. And what they mean by that is when Biden was president, we stand behind Joe Biden. We stand behind high taxes. We stand behind sodomite marriage and abortion and all these things. Like, no, we would find that offensive. It's like, no, we don't like that. And there's things in our country that a majority of people don't like, yet our government finds ways to push these things through. And the reality is, when other people from other countries are supporting our government, they're not supporting the people. And if you support Benjamin Netanyahu and the Zionist agenda that he is pushing, you are in opposition with the majority of not just Israelis, but Jews. Because some people, they interpret Genesis 12 as just blessing the Jews. Well, you're not blessing the Jews, even in their mind, when you support Benjamin Netanyahu. Most people don't realize that. So a lot of people, I'm noticing updates in language. They're still not everywhere they need to be, but I'm seeing improvements. I'm seeing people who are like, yeah, we don't believe God's done with them, and we ought to support them, but that doesn't mean we should, support everything they do. If they're doing wrong, we shouldn't support that. That's a huge step in the right direction. People who will just admit if they're doing something wrong, we shouldn't support them. And, I'll take it. It's a step in the right direction. But Ted Cruz humiliating himself on an international stage, I think, was a great thing for people to see. And I hope a lot of Baptists are like, yeah, I need to stop saying it just like he did, because he looked really stupid. And I don't want to look that dumb either. And so my wife asked, would you ever have Sam Gipper, Andrew Sluter, or William Grady on? Yeah, I would. And here's the only reason why. Because I've said, if I talk about you on the program, it's the same as an invite. So if they ever took me up on that, I would, because I have to. I don't want to have them on. I don't respect them. I don't like them. And I don't believe that any of them are capable of a fair and intelligent conversation. They have proved that to me before. And so, Bill Grady couldn't even have an intelligent conversation with me and just proceeded to chew me out when he called me up trying to sell his book the first time we ever talked. And then I started just asking questions since he called me up. and the guy threw a big hissy fit. I mean, and Sam Gipp did the same thing in person, threw a big hissy fit and stormed off. And I try to avoid dumpster fires on this program. And if I had any of those guys on here, it would probably turn into a dumpster fire. But I would do that just to stand by what I've said. So I'm not going to reach out and invite them on. But if they ever reach out to me and demand I platform them so they can counter things I've said about them, I would do that. I absolutely would. So, Matthew Martin. Okay, I'll be on your show. I don't know if I ever talked about you, but maybe that's possible. Let me see. Yeah, Benjamin, that interview exposed Christian Zionism to the world and the incoherence of it. And it did. It really did. I am so thankful for that conversation. I think it was very good. But last night I heard Johnny Pope preach. He was the first preacher I've ever heard refer to Old Testament Israelites as Israelis. Interesting. And then Benjamin asked a question: on what basis do you say the majority of Israelis are not Zionists? They may not like Netanyahu, but a recent poll said 82% of Israelis support the genocide in Gaza. I don't believe that poll at all. In fact, one thing that's I was watching another interview with Tucker Carlson today. He just released it today. I forgot the name of the guy that he had on the program, but I was very encouraged as I listened to them say things that I've been saying for over 2 years about stuff going on in Israel. But the reason I know majority of Israelis that they don't support Zionism is because, for one, a majority does not elect the prime minister like a majority elects the president in America, or at least the Electoral College. In the way that it works in Israel, they vote for the party. And in the party, there's like 120 seats or something that they have in the Knesset or whatever. And the more of the party you get in there, the majority party chooses the prime minister. The thing is, though, they have multiple parties. It's not just a two-party system like we have over here today. And so the majority party always, basically, they're the one who picks which one of the people in their seats, I forgot what they're called, is going to be the prime minister. So it's almost always going to be, it's not going to be more than half the country that's usually for that particular prime minister. It's just not the way their system works. But before October 7th, there were massive protests going on in Israel against Netanyahu and against his regime. And he was about to get thrown out of office. And one thing everybody knows, but it's confusing for us over here because, again, their system's very different than ours. But if this war stops, Netanyahu will probably be removed from office. He cannot stay in power unless this war continues, because while they are at war, that stops their government from being able to do certain things. And I don't know all the technical terms and how it all works. Again, a lot of it goes over my head, which is why I'm trying to find somebody to come in this program that understands how it all works. But no, a majority of Israelis, they're not Zionist. And I don't believe most of them do not like what's going on in Gaza. I don't know who gave that poll. It was probably Fox News or some one of the more pro-Zionist news organizations. But yeah. So I don't believe that. The Jews in America mostly do not support it. A majority of Jews are secular Jews. And in reality, the Zionists are too. But that's another thing too. I would love to have one of them come on here to explain to people in ways that would be more understandable about just all the different kinds of Jews there are. Talking about Jews like they're all one and the same is like talking about Christians like they're all one and the same, and including Catholics, including Mormons. Look at all the different groups that are out there who call themselves Christian. The Charismatics, the Pentecostals, Baptists. And so it's the same thing with the Jews. There is a variety of them and how they think, and most of them are not Zionist. So Um, yeah, we are not supporting them. In fact, too, most Jews understand that one of the leading reasons for anti-Semitism in the world is Zionism. That is what fuels anti-Semitism, because people see all the greater Israel expansion project, all these things that are going on, and it's enraging the world against not just Zionists, or not even just against Israel, but against all Jews. And most Jews aren't even for it. In fact, if you're a Jew and you're living in America, you really aren't impacting it at all, whether you support it or whether you don't support it. The problem that they have over there in Israel is all these Jews that are moving in there and that are taking over the land. That's what they hate. If you're a Jew over here in America and you're just staying over here in America, they have no problem with you. And so you're not contributing to the Zionism and everything that's going on. But at the same time, because people in our country, they've got maybe family in Palestine or whatever, they're seeing how everybody's hating the Muslim world because of what's going on over there. It's creating all that tension. So our news media stirs everything up, but people need to separate Zionism from like your Orthodox Jews, because they're completely different, and then even secular Jews. And they obviously have their areas, they have their things that are all in common that we're against, but a lot of the things that we are against the Zionists for do not apply to majority of the Jewish people. So my wife asked if I would have Stephen Anderson on the program. Only to honor my word. That would also be a dumpster fire, for sure. I would not invite him. I would like to see Brian Dunslinger on the show. I would have him on purely for entertainment purposes. Yes, I would. I probably won't ever invite him, just because I'm 99% sure he would just completely shut down that invitation. But that would be entertaining for sure. But I mean, is he even still around? I never hear anything from him anymore. I don't know if he's still a thing or not. But yeah, Matt McLaughlin, maybe Bill Grady was just really hungry and wanted Jimmy John's. Maybe he's just in a bad mood every time he retold that story. He did want that Jimmy John's. He talked about that a lot. So another question: what do dispensational preachers say that Israel was before 1948? Do they think Israel just didn't exist for 2,000 years? No, that's what's, hopefully I'll say this word right. I'm going to say this word wrong, and I'm going to look dumb. In fact, I'm going to Google it real quick so I don't look dumb when I say it. I think I know how to say it, but it was the diaspora, which means the dispersion or spread of a people from their original homeland. So what they would say is that, at 70 AD, that began the diaspora, where they got driven out of their land and they've been spread out all over the world. And God has miraculously preserved them with zero proof, mind you, with no proof. But again, they believe it's true because they believe the Bible teaches of this regathering where there's going to be at least 144,000 that are going to get saved after the rapture and evangelize the world. So again, to them, they don't have to have proof, even though they always, when it came to the prophecies and things, there was always proof, there was always evidence. To them, the evidence is that the Bible teaches 144,000 of them are going to get saved after the rapture. Therefore, that's all the proof we need. But are you sure you're interpreting Revelation 7 and 14 correctly when it comes to 144,000? Could that not be, is it not possible that some of that could be symbolic to a certain extent, or that it's representing something? We see a lot of that in Revelation. He's writing things signifying these are signs. Not everything in Revelation is just to be taken in this ultra literal way, but everybody does when they want to, and people don't when they don't want to. Everybody just uses whatever hermeneutic fits their agenda. So no, those things are not proof at all. But yeah, so they would just say, There's the diaspora. They were spread out all over the world. And then in 1948 is when God began to fulfill those prophecies from Jeremiah, where God was going to, and other Old Testament prophets, where God was going to restore them to the land. Even though, interestingly enough, after Jeremiah's time, God miraculously restored the people to the land. And we have the books of Ezra and Nehemiah that talk about that. But ignore that. Don't pay any attention to that. It hasn't been fulfilled yet because, and there's some legitimate reasons people get confused on that. I've talked about that in other programs. Not going to get into that today, but I might cover some of this here in the next couple of weeks. I haven't told you all yet what is coming up that's very exciting. But Israel, they were around. God preserved them. And all those Jews over there, they're 100% legit, every single one of them. And if you don't recognize that, you're probably just an anti-Semite. But anyway, let me see if I'm missing any other questions. I had someone call me a super sensationalist because I'm not pre-trib. I think they meant supersessionist, probably. A supersessionism is another term for replacement theology, or just that the new covenant superseded the old covenant. Maybe they might listen. If it was a Baptist, they're so ignorant when it comes to these things. They might have called you a super sensationalist, meaning supersessionist, but I don't know. Ronnie Wright, try to get Mike Huckabee. Oh man, can you imagine Mike Huckabee? That would be awesome if I could get him on the program, but he's probably a little too big to get on the program. But I'd have him on in a heartbeat. In fact, well, let me just go ahead and make this announcement now. But I'm going to be in his area. I'm not sure how much time he spends there. But next week, at the end of next week, I am going back to Israel, Lord willing. I purchased my plane tickets the day before the Iran attack. And so I got very scared, did not think I was going to be able to go, that the trip was going to be canceled. But thankfully, things have calmed down there quite a bit. The airport's open back up, and things have stayed safe in Jerusalem, which is where I'm going to be spending most of the time over there. But me and my son, Tommy, we are going to be taking a trip out there, spending the week. And basically what I'm doing on this trip, I'm kind of doing a test trip because I'm wanting to take a group of pastors out there in the near future. But I've got to test a few things to make sure they're going to work like I want, because I'm planning on doing this trip in a way that it's the cheapest possible way you can do a trip. Not only is it going to be extremely affordable, which is very important to me because I don't have very much money, but it is also going to be stinking awesome. It is going to be, you are going to see way more than you would on an average tour group. And plus, you are going to get way better, more accurate information about these places if you go on my group. So it's going to be awesome, but I've got to test a few things out. So what we're doing, we're just kind of doing a test trip, but I'm going to make a bunch of videos when I'm there too. I'm planning on doing I'm going to record some podcasts over there. I'm wanting, Lord willing, if everything works out, but I'm going to do a podcast on the Olivet Discourse from the Mount of Olives, which is going to be awesome. I plan on recording that regular, but also I'm going to record it in 360. So you can watch the whole thing in 360. If you have one of those VR headsets, you can put it on and you can feel like you were there sitting with me on the Mount of Olives, talking about the Olivet Discourse, which I'm telling you, it's going to be awesome. I'm planning on recording a podcast inside the Kidron Valley, which is where the blood is going to flow to the horses' bridles, according to Bible prophecy. I'm going to record that there. I've got a bunch of other video ideas. I have plans for some C.I. Darby videos that I think will be awesome. So it's going to be a really cool trip. I'm also hoping I can do this too. I've got so many ideas that I want to do, but I'm also going to make a few videos too while I'm there, just kind of talking about the temple location too. There's just so much stuff that people do not understand about the layout of Jerusalem, and it's very hard to just put in words, what's going on there and how the official story and the traditional location absolutely does not make sense at all. It doesn't fit Bible again and history, all these things. So I've got a few different things I'm going to do with that while I'm there, but I am so stinking excited about this trip. So be watching for some great videos on that. It's going to be good. Hopefully I'll release some. I'll probably have a few videos come out while I'm there. Most of them I have to wait till I come back and edit them. But anyway, and then I'm hoping to do kind of like a vlog style video of the trip that we can put together when I get back, that I'm going to kind of use as a promo for it. And I'm telling you, everyone is going to want to go on my Israel trip. It's going to be cheaper than all the other ones. It's going to be way more awesome. Even pre-tribbers are going to probably want to go, because it's going to be that cool. And but anyway, that I'm really excited about that. The Vindicated News asks, would I have Victor Tay on? I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I haven't really thought but I haven't seen any of his stuff in years and years, so I don't know. But I would pay to see Tyler Doka on your show. Oh man, there are some people that I don't like, but at the same time, I would show some respect. There's some people I just don't respect at all, and then there's just some people I'm disgusted with. And I do think a person can reach a level that's so low that they just don't deserve any respect or any type of fair interaction. And when you've gone as far as to tell everybody you're Jesus and stuff like that, and do some of the stuff that he has done with the scriptures, you don't deserve any opportunities. So, like if I got paid enough, I might entertain the thought, but I don't know. I maybe I wouldn't, just because it might it might make me look like I'm just in it for the money. Not to say that I might not entertain people for a little bit of money, but I got no respect for that guy at all. But who are the 144,000 in your opinion? I like the theory. I think it's a decent theory of them being resurrected saints from the Old Testament. That's possible. I think that's a good theory. But I also believe, though, that what we're seeing in Revelation chapter 7, we're seeing at a moment that I believe is the rapture. I believe what we're seeing in Revelation 7 is, in a very poetic or apocalyptic way, symbolic way, we are seeing the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham. Because what did God do? God promised to Abraham he was going to multiply his seed, and he was going to make him a father of many nations, and in him would all the nations of the world be blessed. And so what are we seeing in there? We're seeing 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. I think that's just symbolic of the saved Jews throughout time. I think there's probably more than that, but I think it's just kind of given a number there, just showing, just this great multitude. But then when it gets to the next group, it's a multitude that no man can number from all the tribes of the earth. And what's that doing? That's showing the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham that I believe, I guess you could say, fully manifests itself at the resurrection. And what does it say too? In 1 Corinthians 15, I had somebody the other day on Twitter. It was one of the typical ignorant pre-tribber types, but I brought up, I connected 1 Corinthians 15 to Revelation 7. Isaiah 25. In fact, I'm going to look this up because this was pretty hilarious. A guy thought, this shut him down so bad. In fact, it was that weirdo Peter Cratafilo, who I had on the program one time, who wanted to call me an anti-Semite, but he went to, I believe it's Isaiah 25. Let me look it up real quick. You have to bear with me on this. Was not prepared for this. Yeah. So he went to Isaiah 25:9, and it says, and it should be said in that day, lo, this is our God. We have waited for him, and he will save us. This is the Lord. We have waited for him, and we will be glad and rejoice in his salvation. And so he read that there. He posted that verse, and he applied it to Israel. And he was throwing it at people like us, saying we deny that verse because that's about Israel. And so that's proof God's not done. And then I brought up, hey, it's interesting you didn't show the verse before that, where it says in verse 8, he will swallow up death in victory, and the Lord God will wipe away tears from off all faces. And I went and I connected it to 1 Corinthians 15, when it says, when this mortal shall have put on immortality, which is at the resurrection. 1 Corinthians 15 is all about the resurrection. When this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. So that passage right there in Isaiah 25 is in fact about the resurrection. There's no doubt about that. He's like, nobody's ever connected that before. I was like, Paul did. Paul literally quoted Isaiah 25. And he said, that's when this will be fulfilled. So when we resurrect, that's when Isaiah 25 is fulfilled. And so he had just never had that presented to him before. And so he just ran away like he always does. But I say all that in Isaiah, or in Revelation chapter 7, that's one of the things we see there is God wiping tears away from their faces. So I think what we're just seeing there is very symbolic in many ways, just showing how God fulfilled his promise to Abraham. Yeah, we've got a multitude from the 12 tribes, but all the families of the earth. We've got people from every part of the earth. And I think that's just about the resurrection personally. But, I could be wrong on that. But I will say this idea of there being these mystical 144,000 out there that just happen to be 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes, even though nobody knows what tribe they're from. I think that's just ridiculous. And I was like, well, God knows. So like God's going to like Calvinistly save these people, these 12,000. It makes absolutely no sense. And so anyway, like who do I think of the 24 elders? That also is, there's so much speculation on that. Sometimes I think it could be you've got like the 12 apostles and maybe like 12 of the high priests from the past. I don't know. I couldn't possibly guess. I've heard people try to say it's 24 special New Testament pastors, and then it's their way to try to make their favorite pastor one of the top 24. I really don't know. I can only guess, and I would pick maybe 12 apostles and maybe 12 people from the Old Testament, but I wouldn't even want to guess which 12. So I have no idea. And it could even be 24 different high priests, from throughout the Old Testament. I don't know. That's just complete speculation. I have thought about it, but I've not ever done a deep dive. I don't even have an official position on that. I do not believe they are representative of the church. I believe that is something that pre-tribbers teach because they're trying to find a way to put the church in heaven during that time. But I think that is a really massive stretch. But it says, I doubt he would, but it'd be interesting to have Sam Adams on. He's a post-tribber who holds tenaciously that Daniel's 70th week is future and that pre-wrath is worse than pre-trib. Well, I'd be interested to hear his reasoning on that. I don't know who Sam Adams is, but he's a post-tribber that thinks pre-wrath is worse than pre-trib. Now, what concerns me about a statement like that, I don't know if this guy is a Baptist, but the that is a common thing with Baptists, is whenever they just don't like a position, rather than describe just what's wrong with it, they just try to make it the worst thing they can. It's kind of like when people don't like what you teach about end times, they'll compare you to Jehovah's Witness or something like that. It's like, okay, first off, they're not even closely related. I think you're just using extremes to try to intimidate people. So that's a really dumb thing to say. So he definitely loses credibility there. But diaspora, maybe that's how you say it. That's what Brother Matt put on the chat. But anyway, I just found out today you're familiar with the Young Turks. I think that show really puts the IFB to shame. Why are we letting atheist leftists have the loudest voices against what's going on? Yeah, that disgusts me. I mean, the Young Turks, they are so wacky and out there and left wing in so many areas. But then when it gets on the subject of Israel, they report accurate facts, and it shouldn't be hard. But they are actually one of the few places telling the truth about Israel, and which the Cenk Uygur, if that's how you say his name, he used to be Muslim. Now he's an atheist. And one of the things that I've said for a long time, but Christians, American Christians especially, we are completely ineffective when it comes to reaching Muslims. And I think a lot of that's because of our Zionism. And I think that's probably, if this young Muslim comes over from Turkey to America, and then his representation of Christianity he has seen has been American Zionist Christians. And understand, Zionism, it's not a Bible doctrine. It is American political thing. It really is. And, I can understand, what would cause him, as somebody who is a Muslim, to think negatively towards Christians. Now, again, I'm not trying to defend the guy. I've heard him say some very blasphemous things. But let me tell you, one thing that there's a weird crowd of IFB out there that don't understand a lot of the Bible. But they love to just declare everyone reprobate just because it gives them their excuse to hate people. But understand, guys like, sometimes people say very blasphemous things. But you know what? That doesn't mean they're reprobate. For example, the Apostle Paul, who before was a blasphemer. But remember what Paul said? I did it ignorant. I obtained mercy because I did it ignorantly in unbelief. And so there are many people out there today who say very negative things against God, against Christ, against the Scriptures, who are completely ignorant of them. Because their view of the Christian God and of Jesus Christ in the Scriptures has come from heretics and very bad, wicked people who are there to turn people away from the truth. So, just because, if I hear, and I'm, like I said, is that guy a reprobate? Probably. But I'm just saying, when it comes, we shouldn't be too quick to just label somebody a reprobate because they say some terrible things. They don't know God. In Romans 1, these were people who knew the truth, who held the truth in unrighteousness, those who knew God. He came from a Muslim background. And imagine being a Muslim in America today, where most Christians cheer on the slaughter of Muslims. And he is rightfully horrified by what Christians are saying about what's going on in Gaza. So again, if I ever had a chance to witness to that guy, I absolutely would witness to the guy, because I'd like to think that he has never been presented true biblical Christianity. I would like to think that about him. And maybe he has, and he's rejected it, and he's a full-blown reprobate. I don't know. But I am just saying, when it comes to a lot of their moral outrage they have over what's going on in Gaza, they're right. And I wish Baptists would stop just, Young Turks equals Antichrist spirit. Not really. No, there's Antichrist. Remember, Antichrist is somebody who's teaching that someone else other than Jesus is the Messiah. Young Turks don't believe in Antichrist. They don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe in a Messiah. They're not Antichrist. They're atheists. So we got to be accurate about that. And we can't just call everything we don't like Antichrist. We need to keep it to what it is. I heard a Baptist preacher recently say that, people, there was a politician that flew a Palestinian flag outside their office in Washington, D.C. And he said, that's the spirit of Antichrist. I'm like, what? Flying a Palestinian flag is the spirit of Antichrist? I get that you don't like that, but how is that the spirit of Antichrist? To me, what would more likely be the spirit of Antichrist is flying the flag of Israel, supporting a people who don't believe that Jesus is a Christ and are looking for someone else as a Christ. So again, and that might even be a little stretch, just saying that's the spirit of Antichrist flying an Israeli flag. I think that would be closer to it than flying a Palestinian flag. But we don't just get to call everything we don't like, the spirit of Antichrist. So, off topic. Did you and Adam Fannin have a falling out? I don't think so. In fact, we were just texting today. So, I think we're fine. We've never been close or anything like that. But anyway, Ron Paul is a Baptist. He does shows. He might understand Israeli politics. He called him out regarding Hamas handling. I would love to have Ron Paul in the program. He's another one. I'm starting to get a little more bold and shooting for big names, but a lot of these big names again. Some of them too, you have to pay for. It's just like I'm not ready for that just yet. I don't know with him, but you never know. Some of these people might say yes, but that's why you all got to help this program grow. The more this channel grows, the more of an impact we're having, the more other people are going to want to come on the program. So, y'all help me out on that, and then maybe we can get get some of these big names. But I would love to have Ron Paul in the program. C.I. Darby is a damnable heretic. He's going to hell. That is true. That is true. He's definitely a heretic. But let's see. I'm way behind on the things. C.I. Darby retranslated the Bible and put his own notes in it. No, he just took C.I. Scofield's notes and used those. C.I. Darby believes everything in his Scofield Bible. Everything. And when the notes conflict with the scripture, he always goes to Scofield's notes, amen, because that Bible's got special oil on it, amen. But anyway, Ted Cruz used July 4th to shill for Israel. Yeah, that was pathetic. I don't know if anybody has the tweet that Ted Cruz did, but yeah, Ted Cruz made sure to remind everybody of something that Israel did on July 4th. It's like, shut up. But you know what? He also exposed himself too, because he basically showed why he got in the Senate was so he could support Israel. He did not go to represent America. He did not go to represent the people of Texas. He went to represent Israel. And, when he was running for president in 2016, we went and saw him and give a speech at a place. And I remember there was a family of Orthodox Jews there. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And then when we were leaving, those Orthodox Jews just happened to be standing outside the building by this door that Ted Cruz was going to be coming out of. And they were basically there for a photo op with him so he could, show his support for Israel by getting his picture taken with a bunch of Orthodox Jews. And so I thought that was very interesting. But do I think Tyler Doak was in the Epstein files? Yeah, this Epstein file thing is very interesting. The fact that basically, there was nothing there. Yeah, so why was Epstein in jail? Why is Ghislaine Maxwell in jail? Folks, I am so tired of our news media and our government treating us like we are all completely stupid. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's so frustrating. If you believe the official story and all that, you're nuts. So I'm seeing a lot of mentions of Sam Adams. Isn't Samuel Adams like an alcohol or something like that? I can't remember, but he had a fallout with Chuck Baldwin. Anna Kasparian on the Young Turks responded to Ted Cruz's position on Israel as psychotic. I can't imagine how Zionists expect to win people like her over. They don't care. Again, in their mind, if they're supporting Jews and they're getting hate for it, that's just more blessings they're getting. In fact, if you get a chance, go watch on InfoWars. Owen Schroyer just had Greg Locke there on the program, and Locke, oh my stars, he was just repeating boomer talking points when it came to Israel. The guy has no clue what he's talking about, but man, I'm going long on all these questions and things. I did have some stuff I was wanting to talk about today that kind of is related to that Greg Locke interview. I had a revelation recently that has helped me understand a lot of foolishness that I am seeing in the religious world. And Greg Locke, in fact, Owen Schroyer mentioned something in that interview that completely goes along with something that I'm actually going to be preaching about it here pretty soon. And it was interesting. He said something in that interview that showed he's seeing exactly what I'm seeing. And but yeah, that Greg Locke interview was very enlightening, and it kind of gave me more confirmation as to why so many people are wrong on this subject, and why it's going to be very hard to change a lot of people's minds. So anyway, is the sons of God in the book of Job talking about angels? I do not believe in Nephilim. No, in fact, I have a podcast on the sons of God in Job specifically. I believe it was believers. It was them basically doing, when the sons of God were presenting themselves before the Lord, that was something that they did in the Old Testament. They would go present themselves before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle, before the priest. All the language that's used in Job chapter 1 and 2 when talking about the sons of God is the exact same language we see with the people of Israel doing the temple practices that were given later on to Israel. There is nothing in there to indicate that was taking place in heaven. People have read that into the scriptures, many people because they think they're angels, but also too, people who understand they aren't angels as well. They've just decided, well, it's the saved, so it's just Old Testament saints presenting themselves before the Lord in heaven. And it's like, okay, can you show me anything in the scriptures that tell us what that means to present yourself before the Lord in heaven? And they can't. Now, I can show you what it means in the scriptures to present yourself before the Lord on earth, before the priest at the door of the tabernacle. We see that language, but we never see that kind of language used as anything in heaven. So no, that's just believers. And Satan shows up one day. Satan shows up. We see Satan show up on earth several times in the Bible. Not that weird. It doesn't have to be in heaven. And so it's just, that's something people have read into the text. And I completely reject the idea that that's taking place in heaven. I completely reject that the sons of God are angels. I believe it is believers. And so, did you know the Young Turks during the Armenian genocide were mostly made up of crypto Jews? I wasn't aware of that. So, Jason Life, our church is planning a trip to Israel. I will be going, Lord willing. Do you have any questions I can ask the tour guide that might help our church to see the truth while we are there? Oh, man, I could probably do a whole program on that. One program you need to do, if they take you to the Eastern Gate, I'm going to make a video of this when I'm there. If they take you to the Eastern Gate at Jerusalem, ask them what the name of the valley is right outside the Eastern Gate. And they will tell you it's either the Valley of Jehoshaphat, or they might call it the Kidron Valley. The way it's officially designated, I don't have a map here, but you have the Valley of Jehoshaphat, and then when it kind of turns, they call that part the Kidron Valley, and then it comes back to this other area, and they call that the Valley of the Son of Hinnom. And when you get kind of around the Valley of the Son of Hinnom area, you're in the city of David. And so just when they take you to the Eastern Gate, and then they tell you that valley out there is the Valley of Jehoshaphat, then ask them, where's the Valley of the Son of Hinnom? And they will point way down the valley, way over on the south side of the old city, Jerusalem. And then what you do is you go to Jeremiah. Let me see if I can find the verse. You go to Jeremiah chapter, there's a couple of places, 19, where it says, and go forth unto the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is by the entry of the east gate. I mean, right there, the Bible tells us the valley of the son of Hinnom was by the entry of the east gate, which makes perfect sense if you believe the temple was built in the city of David, which is true. And so I would love to hear what one of those tour guides would do with that. So yeah, ask them those questions because it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. That's the first one that pops into my mind. Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of things that don't make sense. When they talk about I don't have the scriptures in front of me ready to put together, but there's a passage in Nehemiah where it names off 4 different places. While it's talking about rebuilding the temple walls, it refers to Gihon, it refers to the pool of Siloam, it refers to the high priest's house, and it refers to, there's one other place, but it specifically mentions Gihon. 4 different places it mentions in reference to where they are rebuilding the walls of the temple. All 4 of those places today, they will tell you, are in the city of David. So it's like, well, wait a minute. If all these, so what people don't realize is that if the Temple Mount is, the traditional Temple Mount spot is right, almost every other place is wrong in Jerusalem today. And so these people who are like, well, they can't be wrong about the Temple Mount. Well, can they be, that's ridiculous. All of them agree. Well, everybody agrees all these other places are right. But that doesn't line up if the Temple Mount is in the traditional spot. And I'm seeing this too more and more. A lot of these videos and tour guides are honest. And just most of us don't catch this. But they say, I was watching one today. I don't want to give this away. Most of you probably do not know about this one location, but I've got a special video I'm wanting to do about it. When I'm in Jerusalem, I'm going to bring up a weird belief and theory you're probably not familiar with. I was not familiar with until after my last trip, and I didn't even realize what I was looking at in one of the places I went to. But I was listening to the tour guide, and he kept saying, according to tradition, according to tradition. A lot of the guides are honest enough out there to say, according to tradition. What does that mean? It means we don't have facts. It means we can't prove it. It means this is what people have said and believed for a very long time. But no, there is no way to confirm it. And the traditional Temple Mount is just that. It's the traditional Temple Mount. And many of the people over there are honest enough to call it that and will say that because they've not found definitive proof. Nobody even claims to know for sure exactly where the temple stood. And so a lot of people, and usually Zionists, say it was over where the Dome of the Rock was because they want the Dome of the Rock to go away, because that way, the Jews can get it. So, there's so many questions, but that's an easy one. That's just a real easy one. When they show you the Eastern Gate, ask them what that valley is between the Eastern Gate and the Mount of Olives. And they will tell you either the Valley of Jehoshaphat or the Kidron Valley. And then ask them where the Valley of the Son of Hinnom is. I know where they're going to point to. I know where they're going to tell you. And then bring up that verse and watch what happens. And let me know. I want to see what happens on there because it's going to be pretty funny. But is there a question? Is there anyone you really want to have on but you'd have to pay for? Yeah, I want to get Kirk Cameron on here. If Kirk Cameron is one you have to pay for, I looked up how to schedule interviews with him, and he uses some service that I guess a lot of celebrities and things use. And yeah, they charge so much for different types of appearances and all that kind of stuff. And but yeah, I would have to pay to get him on, and I just don't know if it would necessarily be worth it. I'm not even positive how much it would be to do like an online type interview for 30 minutes or something. I think there's ways you can kind of like, I don't know if they'll like, you tell them what you want and then they give you a number. I'm not sure how it works exactly, but I was kind of under the impression when I was looking at the thing, it would probably cost me about $1,000. So it's like, I don't know that that's worth it. But anyway, but I'd love to have him on, mainly just because of the fact he was on Left Behind, and I've heard he's not pre-trib anymore. So I think it would be fun to just talk to him about his eschatology and just to his thoughts on Left Behind and the impact that it had, because he obviously was a big part of that. So that would be fun talking to him about that. So I don't see what's so hard to believe about Epstein hanging himself with toilet paper in his cell after cameras malfunctioned and his suicide watch guards fell asleep. I mean, yeah, I guess when you look at it that way. So you should invite Dr. Lawrence Vance. You've seen his books before. He's dispensational, but doesn't support Israel or American wars. So, let's see. Yeah, Kirk would be expensive. Yeah, somebody said Kirk Cameron is now post-trib. I think he's post-millennial. Yeah, that was one of the things I heard. I think that he is. That he's post-millennial. Ray Comfort, LOL. Ray Comfort. First off, I don't think I would have him on just because I honestly don't like him at all, and I would have to have him on to argue with. He has absolutely nothing that I'm interested in that I think he could contribute to in a positive way. I mean, I think he's doctrinally illiterate. And so I don't think he would want to, I don't think he'd want to come on here just for me to argue with him. And that's the only thing I would desire to do if I had him on the program. So I'm not a fan. What if Pastor McMurtry interviewed himself? I personally think that would be a very, very boring interview. I would not interest myself at all. But anyway, I think I'm caught up on the live chat there. But I did want to say, just again, some goals for next year, though. Again, I do want to continue having important conversations. I do want to try to get some big name guests on. You all can help me by that, by just helping get this channel out there. The more of an impact we have, the more people will want to come on this program. But also, I am hoping in the next year to kind of expand subject matter a little bit, not just doctrines related to prophecy, but just doctrine in general, because there's a lot of important conversations, and when it comes to doctrine, eschatology, it's fun, but it's not the most important thing. And I would like to do more on just regular doctrinal things. I'd like to have a lot more guests on here that I think that can contribute some things positively. Said the Israel trip, I'm very excited about that. We are going to just film a ton of stuff and then probably release a lot of it little by little as we get it edited after we come back. I've got a bunch of ideas, and I don't want to give all those things away. But there's one place I'm very excited to go back to that I went to the last time. I had no idea where I was when I was in there, and I found out about it later, and I was like, that is fascinating. It is stupid, but it is fascinating. And I just watched a video this morning about Mark Twain's trip to Jerusalem back in, I think, 1867 or something like that. Mark Twain took a trip to Israel and Jerusalem, and he went to this place, and he pretty much laughed when he heard the story about this place and kind of wrote about it in a joking way. And it should be pretty fun. But yeah, he tried interviewing Pastor Darby and Pastor Sanderson. You saw how that turned out. Yeah, that turned out to be a dumpster fire. Debate Creflo Dollar. I've heard that name. I really don't know anything about him. I know what he looks like, and that's about it. But yes, but the Israel trip, it's going to be awesome. And be praying for us. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, okay? Especially while we're over there, and pray everything goes good and the Lord will keep us safe, especially my son. I'm taking him there, and he's got a son coming. And so, but in Jerusalem safe, I'm not too concerned about it. But again, you're always a little nervous when you're in another country. But yeah, so something too, I was going to talk about it today, but I need to shut this down. I have somebody that's going to be coming by the church shortly, so I can't go long. But something to just watch for. I was wanting to talk about if nobody interacted with me on this podcast today. But one of the biggest revelations I have had in the last year, and especially in the last few months, as I am just watching foolishness of epic proportions be vomited from the mouths of preachers, is I'm realizing, and just again, nobody has more conversations with a wider variety of people than I do. Okay. And proof of that, I mean, you all see it on this program. And so I analyze people's doctrine, their ways of thinking, their hermeneutics. And when I listen to anybody, I listen to them as if they came to their conclusions, in an honest way, that they are looking for truth, but sometimes maybe they veered off course. And I want to find out where they went off course so I can know, best how to counter that kind of thing and maybe even correct them. I have learned there is nothing to gain from misrepresenting somebody else's position. It's not profitable. It's fun, but it's not profitable to just make fun of somebody else's position. It is not profitable to just scream and foam at the mouth and call them heretics. It's fun. It entertains us. It feeds our carnality when we do that kind of thing, but we don't actually accomplish anything. And so I have come to realize that most people today, and this is probably true amongst all religions, but this is even true amongst Baptists. If you want to know why people believe what they believe today, it is not doctrinally motivated. It has some basis in the scripture, and it might even be right. Even in areas where people are right, mostly what is motivating them to take the stands that they're taking, to hold the positions that they're holding, it is politically and culturally motivated. I absolutely believe that with all my heart. I said I wrote a whole sermon yesterday that I'm planning on preaching this next Sunday. It's probably going to be a 2-parter, maybe even a 3-parter. I'm not sure, but I'm going to get into that and just kind of explain how this works. And it was funny because it was after that I watched that Owen Schroyer interview when he's talking about Greg Locke, and he was talking about how this support for Israel, how he thinks it's kind of a generational thing. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. One of the reasons so many American Christians cannot let go of their support for Israel is it's something that is this stand with Israel thing. It has been ingrained into our culture. It's a part of our patriotism that we have. And often the things that motivate us, that guide us, that direct us, and all those things, it's not just the words of this Bible. And that's not always wrong. Our culture is going to have an effect on us. How you talk, your accent is affected, not by this King James Bible, but by who you hang around, by your culture. And we have let many things that are cultural too, some that are good, some that are bad. We have tried to make these things a doctrinal thing, and it's just not. And most people, they don't know the difference between what's an actual battle over doctrine versus what is a battle over culture. It's two completely different things. And there are many people who have accepted the right doctrinal position, but what has motivated them to hold that position is not the words of this book, but it's the people that they've been around. And I'm seeing that more and more. And that is why so many in the IFB, as soon as they get burned by the IFB, all of a sudden also throw out all the doctrine. And then usually the first thing that changes when people get away from IFB, it's the cultural things, like the clothing, like the music. They start making their churches look like a nightclub and things like that. All of that's cultural. That's not doctrinal. But then they eventually change on doctrine. Well, that proves it right there. It is a doctrine. Purple lights is false doctrine. No, it proves that their beliefs that they held were motivated by their culture and and who they were around, their traditions. And so when they found a new group, a new tradition, a new culture, they went with their beliefs too. And it's still not core beliefs with them. It's still not doctrinally motivated. And I'm telling you, when it comes to this support for Israel, listen, I don't care what you say, Baptists, and you're welcome to come on here and argue. You standing with Israel in 2025 today, you standing with Netanyahu, and you standing with the slaughter of and the destruction of Gaza is not based on the words of this Bible. Okay? I promise you that. You think it is, but it is not. You cannot defend supporting what has taken place over there today in 2025. You cannot support it with the words of this King James Bible, yet you will die by it, just like many people will die for their country. You know why? Because they're patriots. Why? Because we've been taught to love our country. We've been taught to be patriots. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. But that's not necessarily a Bible thing. And you've just been, the last generations were brainwashed by this. But a new generation, it's not working on them. It's people are waking up. Hey, our grandparents and our parents, they got all their political stuff from the news media that's always been very controlled, and by the TV preachers, the John Hagees, the Pat Robertsons, the 700 Club and all that kind of stuff. That greatly influenced them. That was all they ever heard. But now we live in a new era where other voices and other positions are able to have their voices heard, and people are now hearing other things that's like, you know what? This wasn't completely true, or this was only partially true. And there's a new generation waking up to it. And I'm telling you, I personally think I think it's very possible that we could see Zionism in America die. And I think that could happen in the next 10, 20 years. And I hope it does. And that freaks some of you out, that freaks the pre-tribbers out for their own reasons, but even the post-tribbers too. Because you think, it's part of the falling away. Are you sure that's right now? I personally think the falling away is people accepting someone else as the Messiah, but that could still be another 100 years from now. So, but I'm telling you, most people, and I plan on talking more about this in the future, they are motivated culturally, politically, more than they are doctrinally. Some people, many people, most people today, I would say a good chunk of people today who are hardcore King James onlyists are King James onlyists because that's who they hang around. And proof of that is when you're preaching double inspiration nonsense and things like that. Look at all the dumb stuff that is preached in the name of King James onlyism. Doesn't mean King James onlyism is wrong, but it just shows that it's not motivated by Scripture. It's motivated by culture. And listen, I get it. The culture is one of the things that keeps me King James only. There's many other reasons too. But again, there's a big difference between King James churches and non-King James churches. But there's some problems too in King James churches. And so, I don't want to say any more about that just because I need to get going. But I'll finish up in the comments here. But yeah, David Peacock could be another. I can think of a couple of preacher passive. It would be like pulling teeth to get them on your program. David Peacock, David Hoffman, and Charles Lawson. David Peacock, I've seen some of his stuff. Go watch his sermon on the gap fact, where we learn that the universe is triangle shaped, and that in the gap theory period, the universe was flooded. Yes, sides of the north. That proves that the universe, because Mount Zion on the sides north, that's about heaven, which is not true. It's about literal Mount Zion. But he was basically saying that heaven is at the top of the triangle of the universe, and it was all filled with water at one time. And it's just like, what on earth are you talking about? It's like, I think Peter Ruckman was on drugs when he wrote half the stuff that he did. It was so weird. But yeah, Charles Lawson, I know who he is. Charles Lawson is a lot of hot air with an awesome voice. And so he is a very, very good speaker. But he has about that much depth to him. And whenever he does try to get deep at all, he's always wrong. Yeah, I don't think he would be able to do this kind of format. Guys like him in that generation, they're very good at getting up in a pulpit, unchallenged, uninterrupted, and speaking eloquently. But when it comes to like a conversation and being challenged, I've never seen him do it. But typically that generation's not good at that. And they don't do it for a reason. And so I think they should, but I would gladly debate Peacock on just about anything. I mean, I think I'd even take a wrong position and debate him and still win. But anyway, can't have T.C.I. Darby taking over Liberty Baptist, no bozos. J.B. Hickson, not by Works Ministries. I don't know who that is. It is safe to say the majority of the so-called recovering fundamentalists may have grown up with parents who were so hypocritical and living double lives. That is true. I should be showing these on the screen. I always forget I can do that. This is true by their own words. They have told stories about how, I think it was J.C. Groves talked about how his parents would tell him, all right, we can't sing these songs at this church. We got to do this. We got to dress this way. I mean, they would tell stories about being fake, going to these churches. And then we all wonder, why they are the way they are. But yeah, you're on point, Tommy. What people believe today is not sound doctrine in the Bible anymore. It's been programmed by pastors over time. Paul said, prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. And yeah, said some people, they're right. Their position is eternal security, but that's because they're hanging around eternal security people. If they ever get burned by the IFB, those same people would be preaching you could lose your salvation in the next troop they go to. So yeah, I have no doubt at all that would happen. I think Pastor Tommy should go on Piers Morgan Uncensored. That would be fun. I would go on his show in a heartbeat. And Piers Morgan, so he did the epic interview with Alex Jones, which was just so great. But Piers Morgan, I've seen kind of an evolution of that guy on the subject of Israel. In the beginning of the Israel-Gaza conflict, I was getting mad listening to him because he was constantly just interrupting everybody, just basically playing the classic anti-Semite card if you just aren't fully on board with what Israel's doing. But he's now come out pretty hard against Israel, which is pretty awesome. But yeah. So somebody said that generation or this generation. If you're referring to what I was talking about before, like that generation, like the one before us, they were the ones brainwashed. This generation, I think, is going to dump Zionism for the most part. And again, the older preachers, ladies and gentlemen, just mark it down. The older preachers aren't going to change. It's not going to happen. There are several preachers who are about my age and a little older who are basically, they've always been yes men, and they are going to continue loudly echoing what they have been told, trying to prove that they are going to be the ones carrying the mantle for the next generation. They're trying to position themselves to, take the place of whoever their hero is once they pass off the scene. The problem is with these guys that are just kind of yap dogs for the big names, when those big names die, nobody's going to care who they are. Nobody cares about the yap dogs. Everybody cares about the big names and the leaders. And so a lot of people today, they are completely content and they feel completely safe in an error as long as they have certain people standing with them. As long as, Pastor Big Name has their back, they feel safe. But once that person's gone, I don't think they realize just how irrelevant they're going to be. And you just echoing what they're saying, not understanding why they believe it, you not being able to prove it, you are not going to be able to pass it down to the next generation. So the thing is, most people that are my age, when it comes to the prophecy, the Jews and all that, they their stands are much weaker than the previous generations. So there's a few of them that will just get up and reveal their ignorance by using extremes, talking about how thinking the Jews aren't the chosen people is demonic and stuff like that. Hey, you're revealing your insecurity, bub. Okay? You're revealing your ignorance. Okay, now display that. Explain why that is. They can't do it. So the thing is, their churches are hearing that, and all they're going to do is succeed in getting people who might be seeing the truth to shut up about it. And that's about it. My generation of Baptist preachers who are still preaching pre-trib, pro-Israel stuff have only been able to succeed in getting their people to shut up. But what they've not been able to do is get them to where they are convinced, embrace the doctrine, and to where they can articulate the doctrine. They're not able to do that. Why? Because their doctrine makes no sense. So the thing is, it's only a matter of time before those people are all on our side. And so we're definitely making massive strides forwards, I believe, in this area. And I'm very encouraged by that. And I do. I think it's only a matter of time. And Zionism, it's going to be an embarrassing part of our American history. It's going to be a very embarrassing chapter in our American Christian history. Just as people look back and we're Southern Baptists are embarrassed by the slavery in the South and all that kind of stuff, and the separation, the whole point of the Southern Baptists too, because they wanted to be able to have their slaves. They're embarrassed by that now, as they should be. But that takes time. That didn't happen overnight. And I believe someday, and I don't think it's that far away, we're going to look back as Baptists on this time when everybody was supporting Israel and all that nonsense. And I believe they will be embarrassed by it. And so I'm convinced that's coming. And I am thankful for all the big voices out there and the Tucker Carlsons and people like that are speaking these things loudly. I think that's going to accelerate this. And thank God for that. And so in the meantime, keep using your voice. The dam is about to burst on all of this. The dam is about to burst. And what I'm really hoping, okay, if I may just get really optimistic right now, if I could get really optimistic, I'm hoping Trump puts Netanyahu in his place and they stop this war in Gaza. I really hope that happens. If this war ends, Netanyahu is probably going to get thrown out of power. Now, understand, there are some people within the Israeli government that are crazy. You've got your Ben Gavirs and people like that are absolutely Zionist nut jobs and just evil to the core. And you just look at them, it's like, this dude's evil. You have those people, but there is another group out there that in that government that's not near a Zionist. And if this war ends, he is probably going to get thrown out of office. And if we could see their government move in a better non-Zionist direction, I think that'd be great. I think one, it might calm things down, but then hopefully too, they can just kind of start working the Zionist culture out of there and then just eventually become a normal country over there where everybody's not killing each other all the time. I personally love to see that because I like going over there and visiting and seeing the cool places that are there. And I'd like to be able to do that without worrying about getting blown up. I would like to see them become a civilized nation and society and, join the first world and stop being like a third world country and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we'll see what happens on that. But either way, I need to shut this down. I appreciate everybody joining me. I appreciate the support of the program. Make sure you like this, share this, and spread the word on it, and be praying for us. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I'm going to seek its good. Why? Because 2 of God's temples for sure are going to be there at the end of next week. Myself, the Holy Spirit dwells in me. My body is the temple of God. And so we would like for safety to be within those walls. And so be praying for us. And hopefully we will record some great content that you all will get a blessing from. But I'm especially excited about doing a podcast on the Olivet Discourse from the Mount of Olives. It's going to be pretty cool. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. God bless you. We'll see y'all next time.